So I will continue with the, it's no problem. So I will continue with the land acknowledgement and describe myself or any guests who are blind or low vision. Please drop a greeting line in the chat with your name or your pronouns where you are meeting with us from, as well as the land acknowledgement if you'd like to share. So I'm Zitong and I'm in Taipei, Taiwan right now, and I'm working on the land which is the traditional territory of the Galang people. Today, our meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work and present in this territory. I'm an Asian woman with mid-long black hair. My hair is partially dyed gold. I don't wear eyeglasses, and I'm wearing black sweater today. Behind me, I put the Sensefield theme image as my virtual background. And now I'm passing it to Eliana.
Hi, good morning. I'm Eliana, another one of the curators. I'm based in New York City, which means that it's 7 a.m., but also that I'm calling in from the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape peoples. So following Sutang, I want to take a moment to acknowledge and honor Munsee Lenape elders, both past and present, as well as their present and future.
Recording in progress.
This acknowledgement demonstrates a shared commitment to the process of dismantling the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism that I center in my research, and that's part of our shared goal at Sensefield as well. And I am a white woman with straight brown hair. I'm wearing a navy blue blouse with silver earrings, and I'm sitting in front of a black digital background that has the Sensefield, part of the Sensefield logo. So it's black with bright green squares that are like pixels scattered across it. And my pronouns are she, her.
So today we will start with curators speaking their curatorial experience. At the second part of the event, artists would use 7 minutes to introduce their creative trajectory. We'll toast the artist and play a debate game in the third part of the party, which will use the object that you may bring or found that is related to art and anthropology and that you bring here today. On that note, I want to remind everyone who participate today, either you are an artist, curator, or the participating audience, please do not rush and remember to take breath. This helps our interpreter Yuchen to do their work. You are very welcome to speak, and when you're doing so, you may introduce with your preferred name, pronouns, and virtual description. You may choose to describe your gender, identity, race, or ethnicity, skin color, hair color, and style, whether you have facial hair, what clothing and jewelry you're wearing, and a short description of your background. Now, let's introduce our curator, and I'm again passing my virtual Zoom mic to Eliana.
Hi, just to quickly follow up. So I am a media anthropologist and filmmaker. I'm just finishing my PhD at New York University. And for my research, I've been very fortunate to work with Indigenous media producers in Taiwan. So more broadly, I'm interested in intersections of art and anthropology, politics of reproduction, and media sovereignty. And I'm really excited to be working with Sensefield. I'm also engaged with the Taiwan International Ethnographic Film Festival, which Sensefield is part of. And I'm thankful that you all are here today and looking forward to spending a little bit more time together virtually. Thanks.
And do you want to introduce Terry as our first curator?
Great. So moving on to a couple introductions. So we'll have Terry Silvio. We'll invite Terry to speak. Terry is a research fellow at the Institute of Ethnology at Academia Sinica, and she was programmer of the 2021 Taiwan International Ethnographic Film Festival, which this edition of Sensefield is linked with. And in particular, we took inspiration from the festival theme, New Normals. And she has a much longer bio, but for the sake of our time, I will just please welcome Terry.
Hello, everyone. I'm Terry Silvio, and yeah, I can also just add that I'm a cultural anthropologist, and I work on performance and media, especially television. And I worked on opera, Taiwanese opera, Taiwanese puppetry, especially televised puppetry and animation and fan subcultures. I'm a white woman, late 50s, short gray hair, round glasses. If you've ever seen Dawn French playing Harry Potter, I look kind of like that. I'm wearing a gray sweatshirt, and there are bookshelves in the background. And if you hear any music in the back, that is a Taiwanese garbage truck, but I think it just went past, so I think we're okay. So I'm just really happy to be here, and I'm happy that Sensefield finally got off the ground and that it's so connected with the theme for the 2021 Ethnographic Film Festival. Even though, you know, it's not at the same time, it's a nice connection to keep the conversation going and to kind of add new things. So the theme for the 2021 Taiwan International Ethnographic Film Festival was New Normals. And it was our 20th anniversary, so kind of an exceptional year, and it turned out to be kind of an exceptional year in all sorts of ways. So we started planning planning the festival in 2020, and it was, you know, the first year of the pandemic, and people all around the world, not in Taiwan, but around the world, in many countries, were in various forms of lockdown. And, you know, every blog post and news report I saw, it started with the question, you know, is this the new normal? About just about everything, you know, from you know, is working from home going to be the new normal for labor, or is, you know, wearing masks going to be the new normal, or, you know, is just waiting for the next pandemic and dealing with it going to be the new normal? So I thought that was a pretty good and timely theme. So we chose new normals. And in terms of the films, we kind of went in two directions. I took that topic to kind of focus on two different kinds of normals. One, we looked at films that were dealing with groups of people who were forced to deal with new normals. So people dealing with dramatic climate change, with war, refugees, people dealing with rising authoritarianism in their countries. And then secondly, we were also looking at groups of people who were trying to create their own new normals. We're kind of consciously trying to imagine new ways of doing things, new social structures, basically utopias, and then trying to realize them. So that was mostly focused on kind of subcultural groups and different ways that they were kind of trying to change their everyday life. Now, these topics, of course, these two directions can, of course, be combined. So, you know, refugees can, of course, make migration the chance to imagine new social structures and new ways of doing things. One group's utopia, if they succeed in realizing it, can become everybody else's forced new normals. Right. So we were kind of looking at all of the interactions in that sphere, and we decided on new normals. That the Chinese is 新日常, which emphasizes daily life. 日常 is daily life, because, you know, it is an ethnographic film festival where anthropologists And so I wanted to emphasize two things that anthropology does. One of which is that we focus on the everyday, and we focus especially on what people take for granted in their everyday lives that can be seen more easily if you're outside of that everyday. So we wanted to kind of problematize normal, because that's what anthropologists do. And we pluralized it because as anthropologists, we also know that there's never one normal, right? There's lots of kinds of everyday life. There's lots of taken for granted. And we wanted to see what happens when we kind of mix them up and get them to see each other. And what can be taken for granted in one culture and in one context is always going to feel alien to other people. So yeah, those were the ideas I started with. And yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, if you want me to talk about the festival a little more, I can, but since it's over, secondly, I don't, I don't want to give people because I can recommend films, but you can also go to our website, which is www.tieff.org, and you can look at all of the Taipei International Ethnographic Film Festival schedules from before, and also we are already accepting submissions for the 2023 TIEFF. So if you or any of your friends would like to submit films, please do, please spread the word. And our theme for this year is media/memory. So we're looking at ways that people can tell old stories and kind of renew heritage through using new media, but also ways that people are telling new stories using old media and old crafts and languages and things like that. Yeah, so thank you, and I'm kind of looking forward to taking a little more time. I got to browse. I got to browse the exhibit very briefly today, but I look forward to kind of looking at all of your art more carefully and enjoying that. Thank you.
Thanks, Harry. And I just dropped a link to the film festival website in the chat, so you can check that out. I will move on to Kareem Friedman, who also has a very long bio, but for the sake of time, I will keep it short. Kareem Friedman is a professor at the Department of Ethnic Relations and Cultures at National Donghua University in Taiwan. He has served as a past programmer for TIEFF, the film festival, and is also a founder of Sensefield. So please welcome Kareem.
Hi, thanks for having me here. I'm a middle-aged white man speaking to you from Hualien, which is the home of the Turuku, Sadiq, Amis, also known as Bangza, and Turuku peoples. I'm in my kitchen, and I'm going to talk a little bit today about Sensefield and how it got started. We launched it in 2017 to solve a problem that I had as programmer for the International Ethnographic Film Festival, which is that there's been a shift in the field of visual anthropology. During its early years, visual anthropology was largely focused on ethnographic film and video production. But since the 1990s, an increasing number of ethnographic works began to explore other media: video games, installation art, audio works, graphic novels, all kinds of things. And as well as photography, which has played an important role in visual anthropology since the 19th century. In 2017, the first year I was programmer, Samuel Collins, Matthew Durrington, and Harjan Gill published an article called Multimodality and Invitation in American Anthropologists. And the term multimodal anthropology has since come into popular use. Now, many of the works I wanted to show in the festival that year were multimodal works. but the festival, which is very much set up around the paradigm of film and video, couldn't accommodate them. And it's true, the logic of a movie theater and renting space and selling tickets is very different from the logic of an art gallery. So to solve that problem, we set up a gallery space in Bo Piliao Historic District in Wanhua, Taipei. And I invited my friend Gabriel De Seta, who's to be the first curator of Sensefield, since I had my hands full with the festival itself. And we have an article you can find on my webpage about that first exhibit and our experience running it. The exhibit was on Bo Piliao was very nice because we had both visitors from the film festival who could walk over there, as well as all kinds of people just walking along the street who came in not knowing anything about what we were doing. And the second year that we ran the festival, Li Zitong came in and joined us as the curator, and we had it in the same place again on Bo Piliao. Gabriel was there for a little bit of it and helped smooth over the transition. But unfortunately, with 21, with COVID, we didn't know whether or not we'd be able to have a live in-person event or not. So Zitong went ahead and launched this large attempt to put everything online, which is a major rethinking of the entire festival. And she's done an incredible job really trying to come up with an entire new paradigm for how to exhibit these works. And I'm looking forward to really learning and seeing what she's done with this. Of course, now we can go back to in-person events here in Taiwan, but I'm hoping that maybe some of what we've learned here will carry over into future hybrid forms of the festival. We'll have to see what the future will hold, but I'm very happy to see that Sensefield is still going strong. So thank you.
Thank you, Karim, for introducing the Sensefield. It's really happy that we are kind of like continuing Sensefield this year. And now, like in 2023, me and Eliana is curating this program. And so, Eliana, would you like to introduce like how we think of this year topic?
Thanks, Zitong. So as Karim started to set up for us, Sensefield, it's grounded in both art and anthropology. And so for this particular curatorial theme, we really took inspiration from a range of sources. So part of this, as Karim mentioned, was multimodal anthropology. And also, as Terry said, the anthropological focus on the everyday and a sort of constant questioning of the things that we take for granted. And so I thought that I would share with you two particular ideas that we're thinking with, and that maybe you can take with you through this year's Sensefield exhibition. And we'll have resources up on our website later, both of some of the things Karim just mentioned and what I'll talk about now. And so these two ideas are an aesthetics of accountability and a politics of invention. So I'll start with an aesthetics of accountability. So this is a concept that Faye Ginsburg writes about, and she does this in the context of cinema and documentary to describe types of films that are developed through really long-term collaborations with the people or communities or subjects that they represent. And so it's part of a practice of decolonizing production. And it's really about centering the off-screen relationships with the people or places that you're working with, and really putting them and their needs first. So if we think about what it means to do ethical work or to be accountable, accountability isn't a sort of one-size-fits-all model. So thinking about an aesthetics of accountability, we really have to be proactive and innovative about how we think about what it means and what it looks like to be accountable in the different contexts in which we work. And so what this does that's really interesting is that it opens this new space of aesthetic creativity. And so I'll give you an example. So there's a Canadian film that came out a few years ago called The Road Forward, and it's directed by an Indigenous filmmaker named Marie Clemens. And in the film, she works with a lot of archival research around Indigenous newspapers, but she also combines that with work with Indigenous musicians and creators. And she brings these two very different spaces together to create this kind of hybrid documentary musical where the form and the aesthetics of the film are really deeply grounded and directly come out of the relationships and collaborations that she has with the people who she's working with and these practices of really deep accountability. The second idea is a politics of invention. And so here I'm drawing from anthropologists Ethiraj Gabriel de Tetrayan and Isaac Marrero Guillamon, who write about a kind of multimodal anthropology that moves away from what we might think of as established forms of authorship or publication, and really starts to experiment with new forms and new audiences and possibilities. And so what makes this exciting is that it's really future facing, and it can actually be quite speculative, which touches upon a few of the pieces that we have in this year's Sensefield. And so it's about sort of inventing new spaces of encounter between people, and the idea that in these spaces, new kinds of questions and ideas can emerge. And so as they put it, they say, this is not an anthropology of the here and the now, but one of the otherwise, the maybe, the possibly, the hopefully. Thanks, I'll leave it here and pass on to Tsutong. Tsutong, you're muted.
Sorry, thank you for reminding this. So yes, according to what Eliana mentioned, this year we have found artists and experts that can support the two topics that she mentioned. And in our expert clinic session, we have invited Karen Gobber, a JD candidate at Harvard Law School, where her focus is intellectual property law, to introduce cyber law, the way to use digital license to the art world. Her session is called Artistic License, Translating the Needs of Artists into Technology License. And she is the first session that we will have on March 9th, Tuesday, 8 p.m. in Taiwan time. Next, knowing the people are curious about NFT and blockchain world, yet don't know what and how we can like really practice justice, community building, and feminism on such media. We have invited Maria Paula, the co-founder of JPAC Space and the Department of Decentralization, to speak what if we pretend the term Web3 never existed. She will also introduce how people in Catalonia, Argentina, and Berlin, how they use Web3 platform to reinforce their community sovereignty. Her event will be held on March 21st, Tuesday. Lastly, we invite Lisa Silvster. She's a multimedia artist, a research assistant professor at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, to give us a session on what disability and digital art space meet together. In addition to this expert clinic, we have our artists. The artists would hold a series of workshops till April 13 and let audience participate and co-create an art world together. Here, let's let the artists to introduce their work and themselves. And first, I see Mark is here. Mark, hi. Long time no see.
Long time no see. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I can introduce myself if that's. My name is Mark Hernandez Matagi. My pronouns are he, him, or they, them. I'm a brown person of Mexican and Iranian descent with brown hair almost to the length of my shoulders. Wearing a gray shirt with the fuzzy gray cardigan. Lots of gray, and behind me are my house plants that are looking a little bit sad. And yeah, I can give some background on the trajectory of my work or how this came about. If that's helpful. You know, I'm an artist, writer, community organizer, originally from LA, but I'm based in Somerville, Massachusetts right now. And I don't know, my trajectory is a bit unorthodox. Yeah, well, I'm an architect by training. After receiving my degree, I worked in the industry for a few years before committing to my practice. But yeah, I mentioned this because, you know, when I look back at this project for Sensefield Hyperlink Blues, I can sort of see how that did influence how I focused on kind of the spatial configurations of the project, both physical and digital. And so I don't know how I came to this Sensefield project was kind of through just COVID circumstances. You know, I was doing VR psychotherapy, and it didn't really become a project until my friend who runs a magazine thought it'd be a good idea to publish the experience for the public. And it was my first time doing any kind of like autoethnographic work, you know, and personal work, really. Of course, there's a simulated version of me, there's my community garden, there's my personal archive. And I would say this did influence my trajectory because I still incorporate these like subjective experiences with what I'm questioning. And I would say the theme of how I feel about VR is still a theme in my work today. I think like how you can feel the sort of intimacy on the web while at the same time feeling surveilled, you know, this sort of back and forth between care and extraction is still relevant to my work. And so yeah, after I wrote the essay, it became a video collage that you'll see, and the greens and blues kind of became a metaphor for the artificialness and the familiarness on the web that we feel. And so now in my practice, I don't know, these questions are still in motion. I recently published the book, Rehearsing Solidarity, Learning from Mutual Aid. And one of the things it focuses on with these mutual aid groups is not only their like social infrastructures, but again, the digital infrastructures that like help them cooperate and relate to another. And sometimes they were in conflict. So yeah, that's sort of an intro to how it came about and where I am now. Yeah, the next part, I introduced an excerpt. I thought I would read a part of the Hyperlink Blues essay, if that's all right. I wanted to share an excerpt from where we're sort of transitioning from therapy in real life to the therapy online. Describing how our setup was in person and then how we had to sort of like reset our protocols with each other as we became avatars. So I'll read just a short piece of it. The term my therapist uses for how they arrange the analysis is the frame. The frame is something that inevitably gets broken. Breaking the frame is perhaps part of therapy. Some of it might be enacted, but its intimacy and immersive participation make it undoubtedly real. They, my therapist, sat on a green velvet couch, not dissimilar to Freud. Behind my chair was a 1:1 scale wallpaper with the image of a forest. And I once asked why all my therapist's books were covered in white paper. Their response, hesitantly, an abstracted environment can allow oneself to project onto their background. Quote, how are you? For the first time ever, 1 week into virtual reality, my therapist asked how I was doing. Was it the high emotions stirred by the pandemic, or maybe they were compensating for their avatar's inability to show their full presence. It's difficult to determine, but it was apparent that the quotidian IRL rituals that seem mundane were only to be evident when absent, lost in VR space. The charged thickness in the air when two people share a room is lost in virtuality. Perhaps then digital environments require more intentional expressions. So I'll leave it at that, unless you have any specific questions. And thank you for having me, and good to see you, Dutong and Eliana.
I think the text needs some time to like submerge and digest. But me personally really like your text, and like when I started reading it, I immediately feel that I'm like also in the room with you. Eliana, do you have some like quick response for Mark?
I mean, I think it's a wonderful text. I'm excited for people to engage with it in the on the exhibit. And I really found this moment that you chose to read a really compelling one with the transition, moving not just from in person directly to online or virtual spaces, but actually easing in this really interesting part, physical and virtual, where they coexist. I think it's one of the really interesting moments in this piece, and I think it's a great one to highlight, and also has a lot to think about. Thanks.
And then after Mark, we are moving to, or do anyone have questions? If oh, and also if you have any questions, you can use reactions to raise your hand. And then now I'm moving perhaps to Pei because of the time. Pei, would you like to introduce yourself and your work?
Okay, thank you, Zitong, for inviting me to this event. So I'm Pei. I'm based in the Netherlands, but I'm from Taiwan. Pronoun usually she, her, but I think in front of my son, I'm usually the genderless mom. And my trajectory of artwork, usually like in general, I have 2 to 3 directions of research, one towards emotion and language, and the other one towards microbiome and the non-human, and the third one particularly focused on viruses. So that's a combination of my background, where I was trained as a scientist for my bachelor degree in life science, but then I went on to study design, but in fact it's more the art-oriented design in Royal College of Art in London, where we were actually doing critical design that doesn't really create any product, solve any problem of the world, instead of asking questions. And now I'm doing my PhD around human AI collaborations, creative collaborations. However, I've been a bio artist for 10 years. And in this 10 years, I've made around 5 to 6 different projects around viruses. And that leads to the project that we're showing it today, actually in this event. So my research around virus first started with virus as something that just infect everyone, and regardless of your social status or cultural status or your race, of course, it does relate to somehow with a biological characteristic on your body, but it's not divided as a race division. It's rather with some other smaller components. And it was like about 12 years ago, around 2010, that I started with a project that's called smallpox syndrome, where I was speculating that in the future, perhaps there will be vaccine companies that were trying to sell vaccines that create bumps on your body, so you can actually see others whether they are vaccinated with the newest vaccines or not. And then that project sort of went on to the next one, which is called Thames to Tame. And Thames to Tame was a collaboration with a scientist in the Netherlands, where her name is Miranda de Graaf. She helped a lot on the following viruses projects with me. And her study was the norovirus, which makes us puke and diarrhea. And around 2016, there was no vaccines for it either. It also doesn't really kill people, but then it will have a long-term infection to the people. So we were speculating that perhaps the right attitude towards the virus is trying to tame it. And me and the scientists, we decided to be the first two tamers, virus tamers of the world, where she took the approach of trying to get herself clean all the time, being very safely handling the viruses, and while I'm the one who's trying to get infected all the time. And it follows up with a series of training program, including a manifesto, how we adjust our mentality towards it, or how do we engage our body to adapt to the sickness. And then somehow a lot of things correspond to the COVID unexpectedly, or in a way expected. Like scientists always knew that there will be a pandemic. And after that project, I thought it would be nice to even get closer to the virus. And that came the project that we're showing this time, which is called Virophilia. But I will skip that first and then following up with the two other projects that was done during the COVID time. So one was called Discourse of a Viral Boundary, which is an online workshop where I and another designer, Yifei Chen, we engage participants and create stories about viral outbreak together to use to have a thought experiment around how the sickness will unfold and how crazy we can be. And the other one was through knitting to create a ritual for us to understand the structure of the viruses and find a spiritual common ground and discussion for the knitting community, so that we can understand the virus without being influenced by the media image. Now I'm coming back to the Virophilia, which is actually a cookbook that was written in 2020, but in the book is written in 2068, retrospectively looking at the history of how humans start to use viruses in cuisine, which is being divided into 5 different chapters, and each chapter is using the virus in a different way. For example, using viruses for fermentation, using viruses as active ingredients like a spice, and using viruses to control the dynamic of cuisine that change color throughout time, or other minor controls. And this was inspired because during my process of collaborating with scientists, I learned that there's probably, we only know about 10% of the viruses existing in this world. And these 10% are mainly infectious because that's only the ones that cause problem. But the rest of the 90% viruses went unnoticed, and it's probably because they are having a symbiosis relationship with their host, and they're actually beneficial for their host. Along with that thinking, then I start to explore if we look at the functionality of the viruses in a positive way instead of a negative way, maybe we can use them and have a very different relationship with them, which results in this cookbook that has multiple recipes where some of them even touch upon the agriculture system, and some explore the new taste that we could have. And it's also being showcased as a dinner performances around the world through food delivery or in person. And yeah, and this time with the workshops that we are having for this event, I'm gonna create stories of, well, stories that's around viruses and food with the participants. And I don't hope that's enough. Yes. So I'll give it back to Zitong.
Yeah, thank you. That's super interesting actually, because I just got norovirus. So when you mentioned that you're like researching topics about norovirus, I was just like, yeah, definitely. I'm more of like being tanned by the virus than tanning the virus. And next we have, if any of our like participating artists want to have questions or like conversations, we can definitely like do this later in the third part of like our conversation party. And then now we're welcoming Yanting.
Hello, I'm Yanting, and my pronouns are she, her. I use sound as my primary medium of creation. I do performances, sound performances, and also collaborative performance with dance and theater. I also do installations, audio documentary, electroacoustic music, etc. And I'm also a sound designer and a composer. I'm based in Taipei, Taiwan, and I'm a Taiwanese with Sugarland straight hair. I dyed my hair purple. And yes, it's purple, but it looks not quite like that. So, you know, when you dye purple with black hair, it looks like brown. So quite mystical. And now I'm sitting in my living room, which is also my studio, my working place. Behind me is my synthesizers and small instruments and objects. Okay, and about being an artist, I have loved music since I was little, and I learned and practiced a little bit piano, and I played percussion when I was in school. Before about 25, I just wrote. Writing was my way to express myself and my ideas. Whatever I wanted to say, I said it out loud with written words, but not other medium. The actual time when I started to be interested in sound art was in 2008 to 2009. I was doing a field recording project with a French sound artist, Yannick Dobby. And at that time, he introduced me to lots of sound art works and artists. I was experiencing the worst period of my life ever. But interestingly, when I listened to those sound artworks and field recordings, I felt peaceful and all the darkness completely like washed away and joy took over. So I think that's the beginning. Then during a typhoon Morakot in 2009, I got stranded in Alishan, Ali Mountain for more than 1 week. The sound of the rain and flood waters were so loud that they drowned out all other sounds. As the storm subsided, the sounds of birds and insects started to be heard. So I began to feel alive. I felt I could breathe again with those birds and insect sounds. The world was not over, but still alive. So this experience inspired me to create my first sound piece based on field recordings from Alishan, Ali Mountain during the typhoon. It's called Timeless Rain. And I think that's my real start. After then, besides writing, I got another way, another tool to express myself and my ideas. And now I keep developing more ways of expression. Then, okay, I want to say thank you, Yu Chen. I think it's really, it's really hard to translate all of this. And yeah, and really nice to see you Yichen again here. So now coming to my project, Blacksmith Project. I've been doing Blacksmith Project for 4 years, since 2019. At that time, I wanted to do something about my hometown, Taipei. To be more specific, I was born in Blacksmith Street, Xinchen Street. So I decided to do a project based on that street I was born and its history. The blacksmith industry, or metal-related industries, took on a significant role during the stage of great economic growth in Taiwan, 经济起飞的时期. It's during 60s to 70s. But like many other traditional industries, people can easily ignore the importance of it. The history of this once prosperous street located in the city center has obscured by the hustle bustle of Taipei, this capital city. So Blacksmith Street is like a place suspended in time. In the past, Xinchen Street was not the only blacksmith street in Taipei. Actually, Blacksmith Street in Taipei had a larger range. But today, Xinchen Street is the only street still existing as an agglomeration of the blacksmith and metal industries. And this street is on the verge of disappearing. It's in the process of urban renewal. So that's why it's important to me to do this project now. And I also want to introduce that I have two important, amazing collaborators in this project, Lian and Jiawen. Without them, I cannot go this far with this project. They met field surveys and documentations with me during these years. In the past few years, my collaborators and I did 3 work in progress presentations in the form of installations. And this time in Sensefield, it's the first time we present this project with the form of video and text. In this video, you can get an impression of what Blacksmith Street looks like and have a glance of our past installations. And also you can listen to some stories about this street. If you couldn't understand the language there. And we also have a transcript under the video. Please tap the show transcript and then you can see the English transcript. So I think that's it for now and hope you can enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanting. Yeah, I really love how you describe your voice. And yeah, Phil, and I see Eliana also just coming in to the Zoom. Hello, Eliana. Eliana, would you like to introduce your artwork and yourself?
Yes, hi, hello everybody, and thank you for having me here. Do you hear well? Yeah, okay. So right now I am talking to you from Lima, Peru, from my mom's house. I'm a Peruvian artist, but I am living the last 5 years in Europe, between Vienna and Athens, where I have been doing a PhD. And I recently finished the PhD and I studied visual arts here in Peru. And then I did a master in cultural studies as well here in Lima. So I have lived most of my life here. And I come from a mixed background of family with rural origins and people from the coast, people from the highlands. I have a Japanese grandfather and a Quechua speaker grandmother, and other part of my family is connected to the Spanish descendant people from Peru. So I think that made my background very diverse, and also I grew up connected to different cultures and to people trying to create bridges between cultures somehow, and finding very natural to move between different languages and ways of experiencing life. So for that, I'm very thankful. And these last years that I have been living in Europe, I have been working around the issue of mourning. My PhD was connected to the idea of how to create collective processes of mourning. And in this case, for the PhD, the research was based in Greece. So I was interested in trying to think with artists and with activists from Greece about the experiences of loss that are produced by the crisis, and trying to create exercises or rituals or experiments to foster collective mourning in regard to that. And of course, this job was very difficult because of the pandemic, because collective work was very difficult and almost impossible sometimes. And at the same time, this period was influenced by how I was perceiving Peru at the distance. It was the first time that I was living abroad. Even though I traveled a lot for my work in previous years, this has been the first experience for me as a migrant, and especially in Europe. So this experience of looking at Peru from afar was very deep for me, especially because of many news that don't get enough coverage from the normal media, from the big media in Peru, which is a monopoly of very big economic interests, as in many places, and I guess. So one of the problems that was more important for me, and that I felt somehow compelled to follow up these years, was the increasing of killings of environmental defenders and indigenous leaders, that they have been killed progressively in Peru, but also in Mexico, in Bolivia, in Brazil, in Colombia, in the last years more and more, because there are many conflicts connected to the extraction of different metals or oil or gas, or also the cutting of wood, and in many cases also land trafficking. So there are many different conflicts affecting the area of the Amazon, which actually covers almost 70% of the Peruvian territory. So in the process of finishing my PhD, I tried to adapt this idea of collective mourning to the loss of the people that is trying to defend the land and their communities in Peru. And I developed the project that I am, well, now I will share with you through this invitation, which is called a Virtual Sanctuary for Fertilizing Mourning. And this project has at its core a website, which is called Luto Verde. And the core of the project are videos that I made with a 360 camera that I was wearing on my head. So I was visiting 4 communities that accepted to work with us for the project. And this experience of visiting the communities, getting to know the territory, getting to know the way people live, and whatever information they wanted to share, is what I was recording with the 360 camera. And I edited the videos, and we made with a team VR version of this project as well, so the people that has access to a headset can also somehow experience my body moving through the rainforest. So this has been a long project that lasted almost 2 years, and we had the chance to visit the communities 3 times. So the first time we were explaining the project and talking with the people about what they wanted to share, and doing actually the recordings with my partner Nuno Casola, a Portuguese filmmaker. And then in the second visit, we showed what we have done through a period of 5 months. We made projections in all of these communities, and then we heard the feedback of the people. And after having this feedback, we made some more recordings. And then just now we have been there during February, visiting again the communities and showing the final versions of all the videos that are now uploaded in the website. And we also made a presentation of all this material with some drawings and also sound pieces in Silent Green in Berlin at a festival organized by Driving the Human, which is the funding institution of this project. So I think I have said a lot, but enough at the same time, I hope. So I'm very happy to meet you all and to share this period of time that is coming. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eliana, the other Eliana. And yeah, we're really excited to have your project with us. I think it's really interesting what you were saying just now about going back and showing and screening the work with the people who you're working with to make these films. And that kind of sustained practice really links back to the aesthetics of accountability that we were talking about a bit earlier in the session. So I really appreciate bringing that up. Sutong, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I really appreciate when I reviewing your artwork. I also feel like this political mourning, it's also very needed. The process is also very needed in Taiwan, because Taiwan's often have a lot of such violence happening here. So yeah, I'm really looking forward like more people to get to know your project.
Thank you very much. I will join you briefly for a few minutes, and then I will have to run because this is my last day in Peru and I have a lot to do. Thank you.
Thanks, and thanks for joining us. I'll step in now very briefly and introduce one of the projects for artists who aren't able to speak today, but it's a project that we're really excited about as well. So the next two artists are Kara Page and Susan Raffo, so US based. And Kara Page is a Black queer feminist cultural memory worker and organizer. And she has over 30 years of experience organizing with LGBTQI+, Black, Indigenous, and people of color liberation movements in both the US and in the global South. And Kara, she works at the intersections of racial, gender, and economic justice, healing justice, and transformative justice. Her partner artist, Susan Raffo, is a writer, cultural worker, and body worker with a long-term personal practice. She is also a core member of REP, which is a Black-led network working towards community safety and wellness. And Susan is also an author, and her books include Queerly Classed, Restricted Access, and Liberated to the Bone. So together, Kara and Susan have been working on the Healing Histories Project for over 12 years, I believe, which is a network of abolitionist healers, health practitioners, community organizers, and researchers who are working to interrupt the medical industrial complex and really to build collaborative strategies and stories with BIPOC-led communities in order to create more dignified collective care. And so at Sensefield, we're very honored to share part of the Healing Histories Project, which is a much larger project. And what we'll be sharing is the COVID timeline. And what this is an interactive online timeline that was built to track the ways that throughout the pandemic, as it emerged and continues to develop, healthcare was particularly shaped by racism, white supremacy, ableism, and more. And so they gathered stories and they merged the content into a timeline software, which you can see on the site. And because this is a story without an ending, it's continually unfolding. And so it's constantly being updated and evolving. So we really are very excited to have them as part of this broader conversation, and hope that you'll enjoy looking at their work online.
Thank you, Eliana. And also, actually, this year we are also because we are like thinking about the pandemic, and I'm also actually an artist. So I have also put my work Positive Coin on our website. So I'll introduce briefly about Positive Coin. Positive Coin is a currency reflecting the current HIV stigma level through its price. As positive refers to HIV positive and how HIV positive and queer people are unflaggingly trying to bring positive meaning to their identity and disease. The project distributes a questionnaire to measure the current audience's stigma level, and a higher stigma level will result a higher Positive Coin price. Most often, queer experience is defined with the negative emotion relating to sexual shame and stigma, as well as a series of counter strategy and performances concerning the effect that shame and stigma have caused. So Goffman's work, Stigma, help reframe LGBTQ individuals' marginalization as socially constructed rather than natural consequences of their assumed unnatural desires. HIV positive people and homosexuals are being seen as health, social, and sexual dividends. And they strive to develop proud against stigma. However, Positive Coin would like to include the politics of exile, refusal, and failure. The queer effort to forge solidarity among the stigmatized should also be reckoned with how they metabolize stigma into identity and action. So the Positive Coin monetary system simulates the monetary foreign exchange transactions when the other world is with higher stigma level. They will drive up the price of Positive Coin. The item priced in Positive Coin will remain purchasable for Positive Coin holders, yet each Positive Coin become less valuable for exchanging objects from the outer world. Such a mechanism would reinforce the inner circle traits. People with the stigma, people with the Positive Coin tend to cohere more. However, the value of dividends gets even lower for people from the outside circle. So Positive Coin is designed to reflect the pride and stigma that social deviance has experienced. Each Positive Coin holder is like the bug chaser, experiencing the impacts of stigma and how the disease controls surveillance each individual. On April 4th, I will host a workshop called Constructing an Economic System for Identity, and I will introduce tools for people to distribute questionnaire, create questionnaire, level the stigma level of a society, and create a story script in questionnaire form together. And so today now we have all our artists introduced themselves, and we can also have a toast together to all this wonderful artists and project.
If anybody who's able wants to quickly turn their camera on and raise a glass, or we'll know you're doing it virtually, is also okay. I've got my morning coffee.
Yay.
Cheers. Thank you so much for everybody for joining us. We're really excited for this session and all the work to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So now, before we enter to the next, okay, so we already now probably into the next session. Eliana, would you like to introduce how we're going to proceed?